3, 2.
Rebel Force Radio presents
Experimental Unit Clone Force 99. The defective clones with desirable mutations. They call themselves the Bad Batch.
The Bad Batch.
This is the Bad Batch After Show.
Yeah, it is. Bad Batch After Show. Coming at you with our look at episode 2, Cut and Run. And I was like, I know who Cut is, but who's Run? Kept waiting for Run to show up. It wasn't Run, it was Sue. Sue. I gotta say, I had a feeling when they said they had a friend out there. That was one on the short list that I thought might end up being the contact that they had out there, and it turned out to be true. The deserter Cut is back with his family of cute little Twi'leks, and so let's get into it and talk about this follow-up to the big premiere. We're back to normal. We want to talk to you all about it here at Rebel Force Radio and the Bad Batch After Show live. So if you are within the sound of our voices, get ready to call in and break down this episode. And I got to say, off the top, I'm struggling just a little bit. I think it's a really nice continuation of what we had, but it didn't really lay much more track out in front of us. But hey, other people may agree to disagree. And when I say other people, I'm talking about none other than my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. I'm happy to be back here talking about the Bad Batch, second time in the same week. What a busy week it's been for us here at RFR with May the 4th Be With You week and 2 episodes of the Bad Batch. And
hey, real quick, I have a question. I got a question for you. Is it May the 5th, as in May, Revenge of I'm sorry, let me take it back. Is it Revenge of the 5th or Revenge of the 6th? Because I was seeing both floating around out there.
Yeah. So embrace them both, I say.
Oh.
Just go,
Always two there are.
Jason, you nailed it. So that's what's going on here this week. Lots of Star Wars stuff. And I'd like to ask you why you think that this episode left you maybe unfulfilled or some reason, because I feel the exact opposite. I without going too overboard, which I sometimes am guilty of. Maybe once or twice I've gone overboard.
When have you ever overdone anything?
But I seriously believe that we have a masterpiece in the making here with the Bad Batch. So maybe I am going a little overboard. And sometimes I feel that the freshness of new additions to the saga sometimes blind me from certain things. But I just feel right about this show. I just feel like it's authentic Star Wars. It maintains the integrity of what we know of Star Wars. And like I said last week, a few days ago, just judging from the pilot episode, this feels like a very worthy successor to the Clone Wars. And obviously the Clone Wars, I hold a very special place in my heart for that show. It meant a lot to me as a Star Wars fan and as a Star Wars podcaster. And I really think the Bad Batch is hitting it on all cylinders just a couple episodes in. Or I shouldn't say a couple of episodes in. I should say maybe 4 episodes in. I don't know how they're breaking it all down, but someone who's in the know told me that the premiere episode was the first 3 episodes combined to make 1 episode. So those first 3, that first episode is considered the first 3 episodes proper of Bad Batch. But then you have episode 2, which is this one. Is it really the 4th episode? Because I've heard mixed reports. There's going to be 14 episodes. There's going to be 16 episodes this season. My insider also told me 16 episodes to this season. So does that really mean
is that
only
16 weeks
or 14? Yeah,
right.
I don't know how it's going to all break down, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was 16 separate episodes, including that first one. But I could be wrong. It's not like the old days. We were talking about this. You mentioned this before the show started, Jason, that they're not giving us the information on the website like they did with the Clone Wars, where they would tell us which episode exactly it was, where it was in the shooting order, the production order and everything like that. And we're just kind of looking to other sources for information. As a matter of fact, you said you had to take some screen grabs of the credits.
I did.
At the end of the episode just to have that information.
I got it. Right.
They are.
Yeah, that's for the tail of the tape. You know what? Rebel Force Radio, we do it all for our listeners and viewers, including taking screen grabs. And I got to tell you, it's not as simple as it used to be, because these streaming services, when you're streaming them over through a browser on a computer and you go to take a screen capture, it shows up blank because they don't want you to have any kind of screen capture software. So these were actually photos I took on my phone of my screen. It was ridiculous.
Crazy
ridiculous.
Times. But back to my question for you before I went on my rambling over-the-top statements about this being a masterpiece and everything, because I do feel like we're seeing something pretty special unfolding in front of us. But what was holding you back about this episode?
Well, I didn't think... Look, it's not a reflection on the series or anything. I think what it was it didn't, for me, really, and again, this is coming off of like a 70-minute episode, and this episode is 27 minutes, so it's, a third of what the other was. I didn't feel that it laid, for me, enough track ahead so that I can get a sense of, where this was going. And I'll tell you that the big one for me was I was looking for Omega which I believe that's now how it's pronounced. It's not Omega, it's Omega. That could be the accent, at play there.
I'm going to stick with Omega.
Omega. I was waiting for her to have a moment where she earned her place. Now, she did have that great in the premiere episode where she shot what's his nut over his name escapes me now all of a sudden. Crosshair. Yeah, she shot Crosshair, and my thinking is that she is a kind of a amalgam of all their special abilities. That they're all sort of her father. I think that's kind of where this is headed, is that the five of them represent her lineage, her father, what have you. But I was waiting for her to have that moment where she firmly establishes herself as not just a liability with the Bad Batch, that she proves that she has not worth or value, but that she can really aid them in their fight, in their struggle, etc. This episode, I felt that she didn't do that, and I thought that this would have been a perfect opportunity for her to not just sort of be in the way and be a liability. But I mean, in terms of some of the establishing the chain codes and what the impact of the Galactic Empire is having on the rank and file people in the galaxy, I thought that was all great. So don't get me wrong, I'm not souring on it. I just wish that this episode would have given us a little more. It was big on action, but a little thin on plot for me. But that's okay. We've got lots more Bad Batch here on season 1. We mentioned the tail of the tape. Let me give you the tail of the tape, as I had to scrounge across multiple websites and sources to find it. We are talking about episode 2, season 1 of The Bad Batch, Cut and Run. Jim, I don't know if the production numbers have anything to do with what you were talking about, and the production number, according to Wikipedia, is 102. So it's being considered the second episode, but as you stated, and I was listening back to the show from May the 4th, real quick, and while we're talking about episode numbers, we had a caller that mentioned, I'd love to have seen this in the theater because it was so cinematic. Do you think that had things gone differently, had we not been in a pandemic and movie theaters perhaps not having had the situation unfold for them the way it did, do you think we would have seen perhaps even a limited Bad Batch release across theaters? I don't mean in a Clone Wars movie style, but the way they did some of those season premieres of Clone Wars over the years.
Right. I think unlikely. Unlikely. So, and those season premieres of Clone Wars over the years were just promotional events. They weren't open to the public or anything like that.
Yeah, they were press events, really, I guess.
Press events.
Yeah.
So no, I don't think so. I don't think so because I really believe that Disney prioritizes the streaming service now above everything, and so they wouldn't want to blow any kind of premiere in a theater when there's a pandemic going on. You know, to them that probably seemed like a liability because people just simply aren't going to the movie theaters.
Right.
So
Right.
just aren't right now. And also noting they didn't do that for The Mandalorian season 1 and 2.
Oh, that's true.
That
would have been a natural,
telling.
you would think.
Yeah.
That would have been a natural. Yes, they're going to get much more exposure just promoting the heck out of it through the streaming service, obviously.
Yeah.
It's a new day. You don't need theatrical distribution of any kind anymore.
No. Plus, it costs a lot of money to get a film into the theaters. It costs a lot of money. So, they're going to stick with the streaming service for now. Maybe down the road a theatrical release. I would love to see it. I'm surprised something like that didn't happen in the later years for the Clone Wars. Like season 4, season 5 would have been a perfect time when George Lucas still owned the company to maybe give that another shot.
Well, that's a key right there. That stuff happened under George, and George was such a supporter and maintains to be such a supporter of the theatrical experience, the group shared experience, and was often a really pushing technology in the theater, knowing that there was going to come a time when the home theater was going to rival the movie theater, and he was pushing towards digital and all of that. Anyway, continuing real quick here with the tale of the tape. Directed by Stuart Lee. Stuart Lee has incredible Star Wars animation credits. I just did a quick search. 23 episodes of the Clone Wars directed, 15 episodes of Rebels, and 19 episodes of I didn't even know there were 19 episodes of Resistance, but he did direct 19 of them. And then here's a newcomer. We've got Gursimran Sandhu is the writer, and he was a staff writer there at Game of Thrones. So I thought that was interesting. Matt Miknovitz coming in as the story editor, and this was originally aired, of course, May 7th, 2021, and with a runtime of 27 minutes, as I said. So that's it. That's the tale of the tape. We already have some super chats coming in here. Appreciate those always.
Before we get to those, I just never really got a chance to respond to you talking about Omega in this episode. And I do think she had a pretty big moment when she delivered those chain codes to the Laquanes as they were getting ready to get on that ship. She was the only one who could do it, and she did it. So when her back was against the wall, she was able to perform and show that she is capable. So
Tech and Echo were bogged down, right? At that point, Tech and Echo were bogged down. They were under attack, and so she was able. Good thing she was on the ship. It's funny, the Wikipedia entry for this episode I thought was kind of funny. It says something about Omega was sulking on the ship. I didn't think she was sulking at all. I think there's some bias showing in the in that write-up.
No, she wasn't sulking. I mean, she was just involved in this weird, brush of, where her life was on the edge as she had a brush with nature. You got to understand, this kid had never left the sterile environments of Camino before.
Right.
She'd always been surrounded by man-made structures and always breathed recycled air, and now she's out in nature and she sees dirt for the first time. It blows her mind. I thought that was so endearing.
Yeah.
And then she makes a mistake and goes out there where that what is that, a Nexu?
It was a Nexu.
Yeah.
Yeah, what ripped Padme. Showed us Padme's tummy in episode. That was my daughter and I were watching the episode. She goes, "Isn't that the thing that ripped off Padme's shirt?" And she went, "Ah!" She had the whole impression and everything. I said, "Yeah, that's the one."
So, but yeah, you know, just showing that she has no idea about the unpredictable nature of being out there in the wild and having to deal with wild animals, dangerous animals and stuff. So it was a shock to her system, and she just wanted to curl up and you know, go into a fetal position. And so the only place where she could go, where she actually would feel safe, try to get her head together and wrap her brain around what just happened to her, is back on the ship, because she knows the ship.
Right.
That's home to her.
Right. That being surrounded by the technology, the artificial, you know, all of that. And the other thing to keep in mind about Kamino is there's no land. You know, you know, it's completely, you know, oceanic, and there's just man-made structures. So, yeah, no, I didn't find that at all. You know, what was really refreshing about that, Jim, was exactly as you point out. It wasn't her being precocious. It wasn't her being arrogant. It was her being totally naive. So you're absolutely right. I thought that was endearing. She was just trying to chase the ball and play, you know, she was trying to play games with the Laquanes and all that. Oh, by the way, I do want to let everybody know that we do have our call screener extraordinaire, Tyler Page. Look at him. I think he's hard at work. Hey. So he is going to be screening our calls, and that number to call is 708-866-1737. So get in the queue. We will pop you on. Look, this guy is such a pro.
Hey, Tyler, what did you think of this episode? Just give us your capsule review. Get right in the mic.
I liked it, you know, a lot. There was one piece of dialogue / plot that I thought was a little lazy, but that was my only complaint. That was when Tech, they were like, "Hey, Tech, can you replicate these chain codes?" And he was like, "I've never heard of them before, but I think I can." Something. I was like,
he's a smart guy.
Yeah, but you didn't need to explain that to him. He could have been just like, "Yeah."
Well, yeah, right.
But the chain codes were new. I mean,
well, that's just it. I think what it is just to sort of display to us as an audience, to put to rest any kind of debating we might be having over this issue, because we would definitely be, if he said simply yes, we would be like, well, how does he know? He's never heard of chain codes before. How does he even know what they are? And I think it just gives us an idea about his competency, his intelligence, and probably the fact he's familiar with whatever technology the new empire is using, because it's just Republic technology being repurposed, and he was on the cutting edge of that as this, you know, special commando unit of clone troopers. So obviously they had some high tech at their disposal, and they were up to speed on everything that was going on as far as that goes. So it was probably pretty easy for him to crack that code and hack into whatever he needed to do so.
Well, text delivery on everything, even, you know, again, listening back to the show, we were talking about, you know, knowing about the inhibitor chip and all of that. Like, Tech has this sort of, you know, doesn't everybody know that? Kind of deliver on everything. You know, he just sort of assumes, because he's a super genius and plugged into all of this stuff, that, why, everybody knows this, right? So that's kind of what I chalk it up to. But yeah, I'm glad to talk to you a little bit, Tyler, because, you know, that Steven Stanton guy had to call in and hog the show with, you know, being a cast member and all that. No, that was great. Steven Stanton called us. If you haven't seen the premiere episode of the Bad Batch After Show, check it out, because the whole back half of the episode is voice actor Steven Stanton. He called in, he surprised us, and it was great. Yes. We were talking to him about, you know, reprising his role as Tarkin, but we didn't get to hear from Tyler before he resumed his duties as call screener, official call screener and program observer. So, Tyler, in general, to follow up on Jim's question, how are you feeling about the series so far? You had a nitpick in this episode, but Jim is saying that they're on their way to creating a masterpiece. What say you?
I like it. I'm not ready to call it a masterpiece quite yet, but I like a lot of things about the show. I like the accents. I like the A-Team sort of style, especially those drums in the beginning. And it really feels like a continuation of the Clone Wars, and it feels very Star Warsy. So I don't know. That's about it. That's all I want. So
yeah, when you said that, Jim, the first thing that popped into my mind, as you were praising the show, and I think rightly so, is that if you noticed, it seemed like there was a pattern with Clone Wars, and it was almost seasonal in the first few years. You definitely saw it with Rebels, where it needed to sort of build momentum. It needed to sort of get on its feet. What's unique about this show is that it has all that Clone Wars established. So it's like there's no needing to get the machine up and running again. It's like it was already going. And so I feel like yes.
Is densely populated. You get to revisit old environments like Cut Laquane's farm. Let's talk about that for a minute. We haven't seen Cut Laquwane since his one episode appearance in the second season of Clone Wars. We never knew what happened to the Laquanes. So it's just great that you get to go back and visit these environments, go back to Saluecemi, and see how densely populated it is with all the animals and creatures. It seems like every creature in the Star Wars universe lives on Saluecemi, or whatever it's called, Saluecemi.
Saluecemi.
And I said it right the first time.
Yes.
And also, I do recommend everyone go back and look at that Season 2 episode of the Clone Wars. It's called The Deserter. And I watched it immediately after watching this episode of Bad Batch, Cut and Run. That's what it's called, Cut and Run?
Cut and Run.
Cut and Run. Cut and Run. Cut Laquwane. I went to high school with a guy named Kurt Laquwane. I don't think he was a clone, though. He might have been a clone. I can't remember. Good old Kurt.
Well, they did a really good job, I thought, sort of disguising Cut. I mean, he had some similar features, but I was watching with my daughter, and until Cut was being stopped by the Imperial, she didn't connect him as a clone. She did not recognize him as a clone. So, but again, she hasn't seen, all of the episodes. All right, Tyler, we're gonna let you.
Clone. No. I still got more things to say, because this is the last thing I'm gonna say. Then we're gonna get to our super chats. We're gonna get to our callers, everything.
But I want to let Tyler. Can we let Tyler go? He's got a job to do.
I know Tyler does have a job to do. I have a question for Tyler then before.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Cut Laquwane is a clone. The clones all had the inhibitor chips, except for the Bad Batch, who were the defective clones. There is no indication that Cut Laquwane was a Bad Batch or a reject or a defective clone. So one assumes he had the programming, the Order 66 programming. Why didn't he feel then compelled to go kill a Jedi? Do you have to be near a Jedi? Do you have to hear the words execute Order 66? Is there something in the transmission, the hologram, that triggers that chip? Why wouldn't he have those tendencies? He'd want to suddenly kill. He has craving to kill a Jedi suddenly.
Yeah, didn't he say Rex came through? So maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe there was some plot line that'll be divulged later, or maybe it is something with hearing execute Order 66. I'm not sure. I like to think the Rex route, but I have
the Rex.
No idea.
I was thinking that too. He said Rex had been by the day before, like Rex just lives in the neighborhood or something, pops by all the time. But that's what it sort of indicates to me, is that maybe Rex tipped him off. Hey, we discovered this chip in our heads. You might want to look into that.
I have an answer. I mean, not an answer. I have a theory. Can I give my theory?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
I don't think that it was that the Bad Batch don't have the inhibitor chip. I think what it is that the inhibitor chip, it's in all the clones. It's standard It's standard in all the clones. I think the Bad Batch are genetic, mutants. They're I don't want to say freaks. I don't mean that in that way, but I mean they're not standard clones. They are a mistake, and
enhanced. I don't know if they're a mistake. They're enhanced.
Well,
I think an ability to create new. They're trying to create new abilities for clones to make stronger clones.
Mm-hmm.
But by enhancing these clones, I think makes it so they can't have that cognitive control over them, and so that's what makes them defective, because they don't fit the uniformity of the other clones.
Well said. I think you're absolutely right. Okay, bang on there. I think with Cut, the issue was that Cut had a natural ability to not be in the collective mindset. That's why he was able to break off and be a deserter. He was very unique in that sense. So I think that he had whereas maybe the Bad Batch had it was an accidental modification that rendered the inhibitor chip null in their in their minds. With Cut, I think it was a natural thing. He just was born with more, or hatched, or whatever, was grown and had a more individualistic sort of impulse. That's my thought. Basically the inhibitor chip just did not work with him. That's my thinking. I don't think it was
non-compatible with his programming.
He somehow was resistant to the programming. He didn't respond to the program. Again, just my theory. Tyler, get back to work. What are you doing, man? You got all. I'm looking. Look at all these calls. You got to go screen. Anyway, no, we kid Tyler. We love Tyler and his call screening abilities. Do we want to go ahead and take our first caller here and see what?
Yes.
Let's do it. Hey, we've got a birthday boy here. Not today, but within the last couple of days, our old pal Rich Brendel is on the line. So let's talk to him since it was his birthday. Rich, I owed you one of those kind of the Facebook post where you go, "Oh, happy birthday! Hope you're having a great day." Things, and I never got around to doing it. So happy birthday, belated. Oh, hold on. Sorry.
Unmute.
I knew that was going to happen. Rich, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I can hear you guys. How you doing tonight?
All right. Good. Happy belated birthday, my friend.
Hey, thanks. I appreciate it. So, one thing that really, jumping into it, one thing that fascinated me about this episode is how it actually does follow the hero's journey with kind of the storytelling process. Like, we got, I was wondering what your guys' thoughts are on that. Like, he's refusing but it's not like Omega that's the main character. This is like Hunter is refusing the call to take care of Omega and saying, like, she's no soldier, or listening to that whole thing. And then at the end, it kind of chooses, instead of choosing the mentor, he chooses to mentor her, overcoming resistance and saying, if this is where you want to be, this is where you'll stay. I just thought that was really cool. Like it's following the same storyline as Star Wars,
Well, look, the hero's journey is so a part of the DNA of what Star Wars is, but I feel like we've seen this play out a little bit before. We had Kanan resisting to train
Ezra.
Gosh, I'm having one of those nights. Ezra. One of those nights. Ezra. There's so many names in Star Wars. He was resistant to pick up and train Ezra. And look at the Mandalorian. I mean, he was trying to offload Grogu at the first planet. Yeah. So this happened. So Rich, you talk about the hero's journey. What do you who's the hero and what journey are we watching? Hunter, Omega?
I think the hero is I think Hunter's the hero. or the Bad Batch. You know, that's what it's named after.
Mhm.
What's weird is, like, with Omega, if you look at, I mean, she doesn't really have a journey, like, where she's, like, resistant or anything. She just dives into everything right away, you know?
Yeah, there's no resistance there. She's very eager. In fact, she's fighting. She fights back to claim her place in her hero's journey.
Yeah.
So I like that. I thought that showed real guts, what she did in this episode. I really appreciated that. I gotta be honest. I thought for a minute that, have we been played here? Is Omega going to go off stage for a few episodes and she's not going to be as big of a character? So the thought did cross my mind. I thought they did great. Rich, thanks for the call, buddy. Appreciate it. And again, belated happy birthday, Jim. Hero's Journey and Bad Batch. What do you think? Do you?
Well, yeah.
Is it ringing bells for you?
You see these elements along the way. I mean, I don't know if we're going to tick off all the boxes per Joseph Campbell thus far, especially when you're talking about Hunter, because he didn't really have his threshold moment. It was like it was presented back to him when she returned, and when she returned, there was no moment for debate there. It was impossible, you know. It was just like, oh my God, she's back. I have to protect her, get her on the ship, and get out of here.
Did you think when they had their moment? I thought that there was going to be a scolding, like, I thought I told you to stay with the Laquanes.
Well, no,
you know?
yeah, but he evolved and understood she's not a soldier, and so he has to be careful with her. He has to use kid gloves with her. He has to have a lighter touch with her because, you know, sure, she's a clone, but she clearly hasn't been bred for being a soldier like the other little clones were. She wasn't in there getting programmed with the shower cap with the spikes coming out of it or whatever. She was an assistant, a lab assistant.
Yeah.
So
lab rat. Didn't they call her a lab rat in the first episode or something like that?
Lab rat. Remember when that show Lab Rats used to come on Disney Plus before Rebels? Oh, what a hoot! I would always catch the last 2 minutes of it on my DVR. Somebody said, you guys should do an after show for Lab Rats the last 2 minutes because everybody's DVR was catching that show. We could do a round table for the Lab Rats round table. All right. Excuse me. But back to things I wanted to say about Omega. She has that moment there where she kind of crosses the threshold and she removes that forehead decoration that she was wearing, that
like an amulet
forehead thing. Yeah. And she took it off, and that's her now turning her back on her past and looking forward to the future. So she is crossing a threshold in a way by her taking that off. That's symbolic because something tells me she'd been wearing that thing since she was fresh out of the test tube. So that means something for her to remove it. And then I guarantee there's going to be a few episodes down the road, she's going to be feeling sorry for herself, feeling like she doesn't fit in anywhere, and she'll put it back on. What are you wearing that old thing for? I just don't fit in anymore. So, you know, it'll be something like that where that'll happen. It will come back. I guarantee. Or she'll or here's another prediction I have. When the Empire finally punishes Kamino and wipes them out, when Tarkin pulls his Star Destroyer over their little artificial islands and torches them, and then, you know, it's going to be smoked fish for dinner. It's going to be... I
can smell it now, man. I can smell it now.
Ooh. And then she's going to see that little piece of jewelry and she's going to look at that and get all weepy and stuff. Those are my two predictions.
Do we
with
know?
The jewelry.
I feel ignorant for asking this, but do we know that Kamino, has it been established that Kamino suffers a fate like Geonosis? No. We don't know that, right?
No. And remember, it's always been removed from the galactic record.
Right.
So the Empire can do anything they want to that planet and nobody would even know.
Right.
So,
yeah, good.
You know, that could be the spot of their first genocide. which we know the Empire soon becomes famous for. Even pre-Jeddah, this could be the spot where the Empire really, tests out some firepower. Not necessarily Death Star firepower, but maybe Death Star tech that eventually ends up going into the Death Star. Maybe they have the cannon and they place a miniaturized version of it on a Star Destroyer and something, and they use it on Kamino, but they can't use it on Star Destroyers because it destroys the Star Destroyer also. It blows up Kamino and the Star Destroyer. So they're like, well, we got to get that Death Star done, man. And so, and I'm looking forward to the Death Star coming into play in this show too, because we know that's well under construction.
Yeah.
So
it's around the corner. I mean, back episode 2, that was he had the plans. Had the plans in episode 2. That would be interesting. I would love to see someone construct a timeline of Death Star construction from episode 2, the moment when we see the plans that he had to deliver back to his master, to what we start to see in Rogue One, of course. We see the final construction of the first Death Star. But I would like to see. I don't know if there's other key moments that someone could plot. All right, CF Skins says Bad Batch. Thank you for the super chat, CF. He says Bad Batch versus Rebels. Who would win? Jim, we were having this conversation over email with some of our Jedi Council, and I think
I'll tell you who would win. And it wouldn't be the Bad Batch. And I'll tell you why I'm so confident of my decision that the Rebels would win. It's because of Kanan Jarrus. We see as a young Caleb Doom, he is certainly a handful for the Bad Batch to deal with when he confronts them in the woods in that first episode. Now, true, the Bad Batch might have been holding back a little bit because he is a Jedi and they were sworn to protect and serve the Jedi, being ignorant of Order 66 at that moment. But I think that Caleb Doom, even as a young 13-year-old or however old he is in that moment, I think he still poses a very viable threat to the 5 of them. So, yeah, I would have to give the edge to the Rebels. Plus, Zeb would pose a good match against Wrecker. And then you would have Hera. She's a great pilot, right? And you have a Mandalorian with Sabine. So yeah, I would think that would be a pretty difficult.
You were really going like team member per team. I thought it was just like evaluating the 2 shows, the 2 series, like which do you like better? And you're like doing like a real celebrity death match with the 2.
Yeah, that's how I was doing it. I was being very in universe.
Yeah. Oh, I like that answer better. I was just thinking of, the merits of the 2 shows. It's really hard to say. I mean, we're only 2 episodes in, and personally, I've always been a bigger fan of Clone Wars than I was Rebels, though I really did enjoy Rebels immensely. So I got to give the edge to Bad Batch. Plus, I also am so fascinated by this time period in Star Wars history.
Yes,
the
dark times.
Talk about the freshness of the fresh Vader, the fresh Empire. Vader. CF Skins also says, much love from the UK. We're loving the Bad Batch side of the pond as much as the Mandalorian. We're getting back to the golden age of Star Wars. Wow, that is very optimistic. Let's hope that's true. Also, Jason Horner says, this is the May. This is the May, indeed.
Mando mashup there. But I'll tell you what about the golden age. And this was even recognizable by my 18-year-old son, Dylan, who started to express some interest in watching Bad Batch after really not watching too much Star Wars animation, probably following, I don't even think he made it all the way through season 2 of Rebels. Mm-hmm. So he stuck with Clone Wars. I don't think he saw season 7, though. And, he's a teenager and priorities shift and change and stuff. But he asked me about the Bad Batch the other day. He was like, yeah, my buddy Clark is watching it. And I was like, oh, this is good. He'll want to keep up with his peers and stuff and get in on some fresh Star Wars. So he watched Bad Batch and loved it and said, wow, what I like about it the most is it really just feels like Star Wars. It just feels like it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's Dylan. He's not picking it apart and, scrutinizing every corner of every frame like we do as hardcore fans. But he's a hard enough core of a fan to understand and appreciate Star Wars and know just from his gut what feels like legit, authentic Star Wars as established by George Lucas.
Trust your
So I guess that's the
feelings.
Filoni touch. I guess that's the Filoni touch. And I hope that Dave's influence on this show is similar to how George's influence was to the Clone Wars. No, George wasn't sitting in the writing room every day, during the week. He'd show up 3 or 4 days out of the month and then take off to the Grand Prix in Monaco and travel to all of his houses all over the world. And then he'd come back to the Bay Area at the beginning of the next month and would review a bunch of things and make notes. And he'd have scripts on his desk, and he was actively involved in the Clone Wars without being there involved in the day-to-day operations. And I think that's something Filoni can do. He confirmed on Good Morning America this week that they're hard at work on The Mandalorian Season 3. Obviously, we know he'd been writing Ahsoka. We don't really know when that's going to go in front of the cameras. And he is working with Jon Favreau on Book of Boba Fett. And I think that's really one of their top priorities right now is Book of Boba Fett as Ahsoka goes into pre-production, as Mando Season 3 is in pre-production. And Dave is still keeping his feet wet in animation by being the executive producer of this show. So something tells me that his involvement with the show might be a little bit more than we initially thought it would be. I think that he's going to have an influence and probably run it in a way very similar to how he saw George Lucas run Clone Wars. Not there day to day, but definitely pointing these guys in the right direction.
Good observation, and I think real good speculation as to what his role is there. Hey, let's talk to Chris from Oklahoma. Chris wants to talk about world building, tracking ships and chain codes. Sounds very techie, Chris. How you doing, man? It's been a while. We haven't heard from you since back in April of 2020. How's it going?
Hey guys, this is pretty awesome. Well, I don't think I've ever called in, but my Chris is a pretty common name, I guess. But
I don't know. I trust the call screener. Says that you last called in on April 19th, or someone with this phone number did. So
maybe you didn't get through.
Oh, well,
yeah, you might not have gotten through.
That's probably the case. But
well, you're through tonight.
Yeah, great. So, 25 years old. I've been listening since I was about 12 or 13. So, thanks for everything y'all do and being on this long. Love the show. But yeah, I thought it was incredibly fascinating that they were so scared and up in arms about the IDs and the ship tracking because I'm from Oklahoma, and if there's one thing we get up in arms about, it's our ID laws and our car tracking laws.
Yeah.
And so we talk about Campbell and the storytelling tropes that really work from that perspective, but with those sorts of things, I feel like they're very human fears and very I don't know. I think of the Book of Revelation and the chips and things like that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's definitely Orwellian, Big Brother. Yeah, there's a lot of those.
That's the point.
A lot of those vibes. You have to be wary, and a lot of times people want to look at this through a political lens, and I see why. I see the connection. But it's if the 20th century taught us anything, the 20th century showed us how far the left can go and how far the right can go. I mean, the 20th century showed that the totalitarian Big Brother thing is not necessarily tied to one side of the political spectrum. It seems to be on the fringes, on the edge of both. And so it's something that we should all, I think, look at and be concerned about. I think you're absolutely right, Chris.
For a good taste of this sort of thing, I would recommend checking out THX 1138 by George Lucas. Very Orwellian. Very Orwellian. And, yeah. So what else did you have to say, Chris?
I was honestly really shocked to see, and this clone's name escapes me, but we haven't seen this, X-clone, this renegade since season 2. I was honestly really, because I saw him pop up, and I was like, is that the clone from season 2 of Clone Wars?
Yes.
He's kind of a throwback, but it was.
He's a
really
deep
neat.
cut. They should name him Deep Cut and Run. Yeah, he kind of is.
Deep Cut Laquwane.
Yeah.
I don't remember if his hairline was quite as bad as it was in season 2, but he definitely looks a little older.
Happens to all of us. Actually,
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I have to say the character model was very faithful to the one from season 2 for the most part. You can tell they did little tweaks to age him a little bit, and they certainly put a lot more clothes on his wife for this episode, where she was walking around like wearing basically nothing in the first in her appearance in the Clone Wars. All Twi'leks don't have to be dressed like slave dancers or whatever. They do wear clothes, and so they got her clothes. With these kids, with their mom and everything. I mean, she was really letting it all hang out in season 2.
Hey, while we're talking about the Twi'leks, I just want to throw out, how nice was it to hear Nika Futterman again as the 2 kids? We haven't heard Nika in the Star Wars universe since Asajj Ventress in the Clone Wars.
Is that true? I don't think that's entirely true.
I think that's true. I think I did a search for that before the show started.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Good. You did your homework.
Did some research.
I mean, I'm surprised she didn't show up in Rebels at all.
I was very surprised as well. I thought for sure we'd have seen her in Rebels and Resistance, but I was not able to see an entry for her. So
Wow.
And Nika was always just so sweet and so nice to us at shows and all of that. And my kids love Loud House, and she's a regular on the Loud House. Chris, great to hear from you. Great call. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We want to try to get
a voice on the Rebels.
What?
Aha.
What?
Yeah, she was the voice in the Dark Side Temple on Malachor. There was this disembodied voice, and that was her.
Well, so much for my research. All right, let's talk. Let's see, who else? By the way, if you didn't get through back on May the 4th, as we were talking about earlier, we do invite you to call 708-866-1737. Let's talk to Josh from PA. Oh, Josh wants... Hey, chut.
I'm Italian.
You're Italian.
Yes, that's why I said ciao. I've been listening to your show since. I just discovered your show just recently on May the 4th, and after the Bad Batch came out, and I gotta say I'm really enjoying your podcast. I
Thank
feel
you.
like you're really knowledgeable and you really understand why Star Wars means so much to so many people. My question is, do you think that they're gonna use the arc, like the unused arc from the Clone Wars, where Cad Bane, and do you think Cad Bane's gonna make an appearance in the Bad Batch? And do you think that him and if they do bring back Daniel Logan as young Boba, that they're gonna, as the voice, that they're gonna square off and show how Boba got the dent used in his helmet? And do you think that they're going to go off Cad Bane, or do you think that something's going to happen to him or whatever?
Good question, Josh. Thanks very much, and I'm glad you found us. So please keep listening. Jim, could they recycle some of those plots that we never got to see fully developed? We saw animatics and all of that. Might we see Cad Bane show up? Might we see Daniel Logan as a younger Boba Fett?
Younger Boba Fett. Yeah, I think, check off all those boxes, because I think absolutely yes, and yes. This is the perfect opportunity to do that. If we've learned anything about how Star Wars operates, is that ideas don't get thrown away. They get put aside. They get put on the shelf. They,
with the scripts.
Things get reused. And we've heard a lot about how there was development for a Boba Fett film, in which some of those, which was scrapped, and
Right.
then some of those ideas may have been popping up in The Mandalorian or in other animation and stuff. And I think definitely that this is a great opportunity to tie up some loose ends left over from the Clone Wars. Because keep in mind, the Clone Wars was executed, right after season 5, and there were plans for several other seasons beyond that.
Yep.
And obviously, a lot of story development with George Lucas himself. So this is a good opportunity to take some of those ideas and give them fresh life in this show. And those
Timeline's close enough that they wouldn't have to do that much, in terms of altering maybe the storylines or the plot. That's cool. That would be great.
Yeah, I've personally been dying to see Boba Fett Clone Wars era in his Mandalorian gear, because the last time we saw Boba Fett, he was wearing some off-the-shelf bounty hunter helmet, and it was just, not the Boba Fett we know.
Right.
For whatever reason.
Yeah.
He just
and wouldn't that be interesting if towards the end of Bad Batch, as we're getting closer to the book of Boba Fett, I wonder if they might want to bookend that and create a little synergy where we get an appearance by Boba Fett, because we're going to see him at both ends of his career. That would be good marketing.
Sure.
I'd be in
and
for that.
We know Fennec Shan is going to be in the Bad Batch, and so maybe she and Boba have prior history prior to him finding her there on the sands of Tatooine in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I don't think it's just random that he found her. So maybe before she passed out, she was able to send a distress call to him. Maybe Fennec Shan has been working with Boba Fett for years. We just don't know this. And so, again, this series gives us a great opportunity to tie it all together.
By the way, big shout outs here to the chat. We've got our usual cast of characters here. Some shout outs. We've got Peter and Adam Bray, one of my all-time faves. We got Rob in here and Yanni. Did I mention Eric from Phoenix? Eric from Phoenix. He's there. So thanks for keeping the conversation going. I saw one comment about Cad Bane that it's something I'd forgotten, or maybe I'd forgotten to remember. In that plot with for that episode, the showdown between Boba Fett and Cad Bane, is it established that Boba kills Cad Bane, and that's sort of what cements his reputation? Do we know this to be true?
That's the tease, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to tell because I think Boba's helmet also hits the ground. I haven't seen that animatic for a while. They only showed it once publicly, and that was at Star Wars Celebration, I think 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And I've only seen, audience recorded footage of it too. I mean, I've never actually even seen it on the screen as it's meant to be seen. But it's pretty cool. And I think that it was left sort of vague as to who won that shootout.
Yeah. It was very OK Corral kind of thing. I mean, it was very, very Western. Hey, let's talk to Blake. Blake, I don't believe. You know what, Blake, you did get through. I guess there's no difference. All right, fine. Blake's next. Blake up from Florida. Hey, Blake.
Hey, you guys brought me back. Chut.
Chut, Blake. Bring it. I see what you want to talk about. You think this is a big ripoff of Mando. I see it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no. I think they're doing the right thing here, and I'm happy with what Jimmy said earlier. Let me bring it all together. I'm not gonna ramble on too much, but I did love this episode. I had a lot of feels with it. I loved seeing Omega experiencing those first moments off of Camino.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've all known someone who's experienced something for the first time. That's something big, and that was cool. It made me feel something.
Okay.
I felt feelings, which I don't know. It was weird, but I felt feelings watching that. It was cool.
I don't know. I feel like.
But no, my main point, my main idea of the night is how this is very similar to Mandalorian for me. Now let's take the first 4 episodes of Mandalorian season 1, right? So you have 3 very action-packed episodes.
Right.
And then the fourth episode, he's on like a farming, in a little farming village, and there's a little bit of action. You think he's going to leave the, sweet baby Yoda behind, but he doesn't. You learn a little bit something about Mando, and then they leave the planet. Now, Jimmy Mac, you said earlier how the first episode of this, there's the 70 whatever minutes of it was supposed to be the first 3 episodes. Now here we are, let's just say the 4th episode. Now we're on a little farming house, and we think we're going to leave the kid behind. We don't. Hunter realizes that he can't because Omega won't leave Hunter behind. Now she has to be with him. So it kind of shares the same story beats of even the first 4 episodes of The Mandalorian. So just my 2, I'm not going to ramble on like I did in the last call, but my 2 mini questions to you are, I saw a lot of growth with Hunter because, when he kind of scolded Omega early on, the other clone that was the head of that house, and the mom kind of, was like, hey, like this is a kid, this isn't a soldier, but you got to approach this as, like a father or a parent would. And so do you guys think that we're going to see more character growth mainly with just Hunter and Omega, and the other, 3 are going to be more like the Cara Dunes and the Grief Kargas of the show, where they're going to be there and be a source to move the plot forward, but we're not going to see much growth. And also, so my second part too, as I'm really curious, is do you think the success of The Mandalorian is going to influence the story in this? Because, let's face it. The Mandalorian was, the biggest thing to happen since, maybe not the biggest, but the most well received since the original Star Wars, I'd say.
Yep.
I think
you're absolutely right. Yep.
But do you really think that the strong storytelling of season 1, 2 of Mando is going to influence or has influenced the storytelling beats that we're going to get in Bad Batch? Because I know, Filoni obviously involved in Clone Wars and Rebels, but I'm sensing very different character and story beats with this than I did with those 2, which, and those other 2, fantastic. I love, obviously Clone Wars, legendary, Rebels. I loved it, but this is a little different. I'm getting a little more Mandalorian vibes. So I'm just wondering what you guys thought about those 2 thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you, Blake. Great questions. So, Jim, let's take them one at a time. The first is Hunter versus the rest of the Bad Batch. And is the show really about him? And is he going to be sort of the focus of the character growth? And his compatriots are sort of there to support that and kind of move that story forward. I think yes. I think at least looking at the first 4, technically 4 episodes, it looks like this is sort of Hunter's show. The other 3 are important, but I think Blake's onto something where he says that they're there to sort of support and reflect what's going on with Hunter, maybe serve as a contrast in some ways. So I think it's definitely Hunter's show.
Right. Tech and Echo, they're there, definitely support cast, and they're there to provide their skills to move Hunter's story along. Wrecker is there for comic relief. And Hunter is the heart and soul of the Bad Batch operation.
Yeah.
And he is the moral center of their group. And then Omega provides us with the perspective. We're seeing the story unfold from her perspective primarily. And Hunter is obviously the focal point of her perspective because she has connected with him. There's an obvious chemistry there. She looks at him as almost a father figure, or big brother. Big brother would be more appropriate. Somebody said, hey, this kid is Boba Fett's little sister. And I thought about that for a second, and I'm like, I don't know. We'll know more when we find out who the template is for Omega, because it seems very unlikely it's Jango Fett. I think there is another clone template that has been tapped into to create Omega. And of course, people are speculating everything from Captain Phasma to Palpatine himself.
Yep.
And I'm open to all those suggestions. I think it's great.
But there's definitely a connection between her and Hunter, and I think the smart money is some sort of connection, whether it be father-daughter or brother-sister. There's some connection. She feels very akin to him, and I think that's significant. Hey, it's just a quick note here. When I saw that this was going down on Saluecemi, I was like, okay, I know Saluecemi is significant, and then I recalled that we do see it in Revenge of the Sith, and then it brought up the whole Stas Ali versus Adi Gallia. I went down that rabbit trail for a good 15 minutes.
Oh, Christian Mocked has been trying to wrap his head around that one for years.
Yeah, and really it all came down to the fact that they had to, since they went from shooting in the UK or from shooting in Australia to the UK or vice versa, whatever it was, and they couldn't get the same actress. They had a different actress, and then they realized at some point, gosh, she doesn't look enough like the original actress to continue to call her Adi Gallia, so we're just going to retcon this bad boy and call it Stas Ali. But it's the same costume. It's the
That's a rabbit hole. But yeah, Stas Ali was executed on Saluecemi. She was on the speeder bike,
right?
And that's a fun one to watch in slow-mo, because they shoot her and she goes flying off that bike, and then the bike spins around and explodes. It's
good times.
Quality kill for Order 66. Yeah, good times. Good times.
All right, let's check in with Ben from North Carolina. You're on with Rebel Force Radio. Yo, Ben. Chut.
Hey, guys. Chut.
What's going on?
Not much. I really just want to talk about a callback in the first episode that I really thought y'all were going to bring up in the after show Wednesday night. But I noticed around 18:15 in Aftermath, the guys are going back into the barracks. Of course, Order 66 has happened at this time. And they're talking about why they didn't respond. And they zoom in, Tech's explaining this to all of them because, they're mutated. And he's like, this is probably why we didn't respond. And they ask, well, what about Echo? Because, of course, Echo was a reg. And they zoom in on Tech. And Tech says, in the same cadence as the good Sir Alec Guinness said it, you are more machine than man. Yeah. And I just thought that was such a well-done callback, man. I mean, it was incredible. I got chill bumps. I heard it, I was like, oh, my God, this is so good.
He's more machine now,
and I
just,
yeah, man. I was like, no way. Twisted and evil.
Evil.
But I just didn't know. I didn't know if you guys caught that.
Oh, yeah.
I just thought it was really cool and worth bringing up.
Yeah. I'm glad you did. What kind of stuck with me in that scene was Crosshair, who said, and you turned into that, and it was just like, I knew, okay, this guy is a bad dude, this Crosshair, because he's really, talking trash on his brother who'd been through hell and back. And he's like, yeah, it turned into that, like you're discussing. And that's kind of part of the Camino / clone culture where everything has to be uniform. And the Empire is really bringing that circle in super tight, because the Jedi influence the clones to be individuals. And now the Empire's taken it all back. And they're going to go back to being numbers. They're all, their armor is
the great
in.
line that I think it was it Echo that said in this episode, said, ironic that the clones have always wanted names and now everyone's getting a number.
Yeah, that was great.
A great line. Very THX, very,
big oppressive government seeking its claws into the day-to-day operations of the people to the point of suffocation. And we're seeing the very beginnings of the Empire starting to do that. They haven't been revealed as evil yet. They haven't been revealed as genocidal maniacs or, dark side devotees. Nobody knows any of that. Right now, they're promoting themselves as a kind, benevolent government that's looking out for all the people, and they will gladly take your invalid currency in exchange for you taking on this chain code where we can follow you everywhere you go and watch your every move.
What does Palpatine call it? A safe and secure.
Mm-hmm.
What is he? What is it? Democracy? Society. That's
Society.
Right. Society.
Society. That's what do you like? Society.
All right, we got Eric from Phoenix. He tried to get in the other night, and Steven Stanton stood in his way, but we've got him tonight.
Somebody. We needed Tarkin to stop Eric from Phoenix, but
I've been waiting for this one. This is good.
Yes,
Eric, you've got some info about Omega.
You may fire when ready.
Yeah, chut, guys.
Chut.
Take my call.
Chuddy,
chut.
So,
on Tuesday, after the episode, and you guys were talking about it in the after show, I was not satisfied with just looking at Omega, thinking about the name and being the last. So I kept digging and I kept searching, and I found an article that deals with personalities that I thought was interesting.
Okay.
I thought if I could just share a couple sentences out of the article that I think relates and sheds a little bit more light on the character Omega in the Bad Batch.
Please.
So the article is called 9 Differences Between an Alpha, a Beta, and an Omega Female. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know there was a Beta or Omega personality type. But there's nine examples, and there's 3 that relate to the personality type Omega. And the first one that they talk about, and this one I think is dead on, Omega women are the biggest empaths. When it comes to Omega women, 2 of their most recognizable characteristics are their sensitivity and kindness. Omega female has the ability to understand people's emotions and viewpoints. And I think if you go back to the first episode, I think Omega has more than empath skills. So if you think of, oh my gosh, the gal in Star Trek Generations, I just totally forgot what her name was, that advised
Deanna
Kirk.
Troy.
She was she was an empath.
Right.
Yeah. So she was an empath, but clearly Omega is more than an empath because she actually knew what Crosshair was going to do. But once again, it relates to the personality type, which then is the name of the character. Okay. So then the next one is, sorry, I got to scroll to get there. Bear with me. Omega women have limited social skills. And here's a couple things. They're usually the weird ones and the ones who stand out from the crowd. And I think Omega would fit that description pretty well.
Sure.
It was referenced in the lunch fight that, she's a scrapper or a scabber or whatever it was.
Yeah, lab rat or something like that. Yeah.
Lab rat.
Right. She's the only female clone there on Camino. Clearly does not fit in and doesn't necessarily fit in with the folks that are there. And then the last one says, and bear with me, it's the last one I'm going to bust.
So we got empath, we've got limited social skills, and what's the other? Because this is describing my dream woman.
Yep. And Omega women don't have the need to fit in.
They don't need to fit in. So they don't fit in and they don't need to.
Exactly. So anyway, does that spell out a little bit more?
Yeah.
To me, it puts a little bit more sense around the name, and I think there was a little deeper meaning there. Now the question is, why is she there, and why did the Kaminoans build her? I believe, and it's referenced in this episode, it's referenced in the last episode. So the first thing she did, she shot the blaster. Did she kill Crosshair? She didn't. She purposely disarmed him, but she had never fired a blaster before. So
hell of a shot.
She's been bred with skills, but she didn't kill him for a reason. And then in this episode, Cut specifically says the Kaminoans don't do anything without a purpose. I believe that she's a clone that they're designing to potentially sell or use as think of a political advisor or a spy, where she has telepathy. She has the ability to read people's minds and know what they want to do or know what they're thinking.
And if you have a clone that can do that, think of the money you can make selling those clones to governments, to businesses around the galaxy. Anyway, that's kind of where I went with it.
Wow.
That's a little bit about the article that I think spells
I
out
love
a
it.
little bit more about the name. So there you go.
I love it, and we love you, Eric. That's great stuff. Thanks, man. Appreciate that. I want to go back because I think that's real good. And I think if you look at the name Omega and just assume that it means the end, she's the last clone, I think Eric's onto something. I think it's naive to think that it's that simple. Because when he said empathic, as I said, I was listening back to the May the 4th episode, Jim, and I made a claim that Omega can read the future. And you pushed back on that, and you said, well, I don't know that she's reading the future. I think she's picking up on the situation. That was when she had said to Crosshair, I know what you're going to do. I don't blame you. It's not your fault. And as I listened back to that conversation, I think as sure as I was in the moment when I made the statement, I'm starting to think differently about it, that there is some more empathic thing going on. It's not I see the future. I think it is that she reads the situation very, very well. I mean, you could argue, you could say that, that level of empathy gives you almost the ability to see the future because you can read people's emotions to such a degree. But I think that what Eric is mentioning is bang on here. We've got three characteristics: empathy, limited social skills, perhaps, and not needing to fit in. And that's what's so interesting about Omega 2 is that she's not walking around, insecure. She's actually quite confident when she's talking to Hunter in the Bad Batch. Hello, I'm Omega. I'm going to be your friend. We're going to do this, and I'm going to. So it's not like she's not a wallflower, Yeah.
Well, it seems like she knows who she is.
Yeah.
But still hasn't fully discovered everything about herself because she's been sheltered.
Mm-hmm.
She's been sheltered her whole life. I've noticed a lot of people are bringing up the idea that she could be force sensitive. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I always thought, according to the legend, you couldn't clone a force sensitive individual. Because if you could, then the entire clone army might have been force sensitive. And then they wouldn't need the Jedi General. And that would take care of Palpatine's problems in one swoosh of the clone. I don't know what we're swooshing in this. I don't know why I'm swooshing. Okay, I have nothing to.
You swooshed.
I swooshed, and I had to follow up my swoosh with something, and I got nothing that swooshes. Maybe after the show, but but that's what I always assumed was that you couldn't clone a force sensitive individual.
Well,
now they do it in the expanded universe, of course, with Joris and Joris Sabaoth.
But what about clone Palpatine?
Clone Palpatine. Well, that's dark side stuff.
Rise of Skywalker.
I mean, I think all of this stuff's going to be redefined.
Yep.
In such a way because.
Now here's the question.
Yeah,
here's the question.
I can't even wrap my head around it.
Yeah, no, but with the Palpatine thing, what I keep trying to figure out is was it a body that the spirit of Palpatine inhabited? That's the feeling that I'm getting, as opposed to a replicant clone. So he needs a vessel to and I'm also getting the sense that there's not a lot of Force users that could do what Palpatine is attempting to do, which is inhabit a body. And that's really what he wanted Rey for. He wanted Rey. He didn't want Rey for Rey. He wanted to be able to inhabit Rey's healthy, virile body.
Yeah. Yes. Healthy and virile.
That sounded more perverse than I wanted it to. But
it's funny because in the Dark Horse comics, that was the case where Palpatine just essentially transferred his Force essence into a clone body. So it was Palpatine's essence that was strong with the Force. Luminous beings are we.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't a clone, an individual clone displaying Force sensitivity. What about Snoke, though? Because he definitely displays Force sensibility. So yeah, I think there's a lot of changes going on with how we perceived clones and their connection to the Force, and that could come with over years of developing these clones, and new techniques are discovered, new technologies are advanced, and they're able to figure that stuff out, I guess, to a degree.
Yeah.
But that whole Snoke thing, and I'm sorry to everyone who, because I know people are real sensitive about any discussion of the sequel trilogy, even in context like this one is. Paul Bateman would have already left.
The
and
headphones.
He wouldn't even say goodbye.
You'd have heard the headphones clunk on the table.
Yeah, we hate that sound. And then nothing. It'd be, are you still there? And he's like, let me know when you're done talking sequels. I'm sorry, and I'm not making fun of Paul, but I mean, a lot of people are sensitive about that. They're sensitive about, and right. I'm just trying to bring it all together here because we are talking about clones.
Right.
And we're talking about the potential of Omega having Force sensitivity, and we're looking for clues in the Star Wars stories that have been told previously to try to connect those dots and even see if it's possible. So pardon us for bringing up snow.
Yeah, how dare we? All right, we're going to try to burn through a few more calls here before we wrap things up. Great conversation, great calls, and great discussion. Here's Mason from New Jersey. Mason, hello, you're on with Rebel Force Radio. We are talking The Bad Batch, Cut and Run. What's going on tonight?
Hey, guys. I wanted to come on here and see what you got, what your guys' thoughts were on the new episode, and what your thoughts are on where we're going for next episode and where the direction we're heading in for this season.
Where are we? You want us to be Omega and read the future? Where are we going for the rest of the season? Thanks, Mason. I appreciate that. Jim, I have a question about the future because I think that. Why can I not remember his name? The sniper, the guy that deserted him, that left him. Crosshair. I want to say Sniper, or that name is not sticking. Crosshair.
Call him Sniper.
I am very surprised. I thought that we would, within this second episode, establish as a goal of the Bad Batch to reclaim Crosshair, to get him back. To bring him back. So when we got the call about expectations for the future, that's blown for me. I don't think that's going to be a plot point. I don't think that they're going back for their brother. And that's surprising to me.
Yeah, I think they've turned it. Well, he was a jerk. I mean, I don't think they liked him. As I mentioned before in the show, he was trash-talking Echo. You think Echo wanted to be blown up and then recreated as more machine than man? And he seemed like he was. Crosshair acted like his mere presence was offensive to him. I mean, Crosshair was a dick, so they had to get rid of him. Oh, sorry for all the kids listening. Yeah. Jason's son.
Oh yeah. No, Parker's heard a lot. Believe me, he's heard a lot worse.
It's going to be a busy weekend as you guys are scrubbing his mouth out with soap. Repeating what Uncle Jimmy had to say. Oh, and by the way, Uncle Wrecker.
Oh, yeah, Uncle Wrecker. That's kind of like Uncle Jimmy in a way. Uncle Wrecker, as he's picking him up and throwing it. I thought that was really cute. I like that. I like that. Wrecker's a big kid, It's a big teddy bear.
Right. And the kids love him naturally. The most dangerous guy on the crew is lovable to children.
Right.
Makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah. No, I thought that was cool. So as far as thinking about the future and the rest of the season, I'm surprised that we're not seeing already a mission to get Crosshair back. But it was where I think it's going. I'm going to go back to what I said after the premiere episode. I really want to see Vader. I want to see him being introduced as a holy you-know-what moment. Wow, this just keeps getting worse for us. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, you want Bad Batch.
Yeah, right.
You guys think you're Bad Batch. This guy is the baddest of the batch. Here's Darth Vader. So, yeah, I've never seen a clone like him before. You can just hear him.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and then, also, they mentioned Rex, and I wouldn't mind seeing Rex show up at some point. Yeah.
Well, and a lot of people got on our case about this because we did gloss over his presence in the trailer. He is seen in the trailer. It's kind of a wide shot, but it's clearly Captain Rex.
Uh-huh.
And we just didn't even say anything about it when we did our trailer review. And countless numbers of people are like, why didn't you say anything about Rex? And it's like, well, all these clones flying at us are all voiced by D. And
right.
He's just, at this point, he's just another clone. But he really isn't.
Right.
He holds the key to a lot of things. And he was, mentioned, there's foreshadowing. He's just a day ahead of the Bad Batch reaching Saluecemi. So you know that they're going to cross paths with him, I would say, in the next handful of episodes.
Yeah, I would think
because it's been
so.
so clearly foreshadowed.
All right. All right, let's do it. Wait, we can only pick one more. Apologies to the rest. If you didn't get on tonight, we will be back next Friday. There's another episode, right? Next Friday?
Yeah, it's
okay.
every Friday.
Every Friday.
Every Friday for the next few months. Yeah.
Right. All right. So we'll be back. So please call back. And to author Adam Bray, good friend of us here at Rebel Force Radio, I'm still interested in that Black Series trade, just so you know. So DM me. All right. Let's go to Nathan from Maryland. Nathan, you want to talk about the design changes that occur from the Republic to the Empire? Please tell us, what are these design changes?
Stuff like this. I love stuff like this.
I have a really chut, gentlemen. Sorry, this is long-time listener, first-time caller. I have a whole complete thought here, but the other day, Jason said it best when he said that this period of time is the most interesting and tantalizing unexplored area in the Star Wars timeline. The transition from the Republic to the Empire. And as we know, there's 19 years to play with, but the question is how quickly did those rates of changes, particularly design, how those transpired. One thing I noticed in the premiere episode that surprised me was that the first time we saw Tarkin in the Clone Wars, he was Captain Tarkin. He was wearing a Republic officer's uniform. Right. I was very surprised to see that mere minutes after the birth of the Empire, Tarkin strolls up wearing an Imperial uniform, not Moff, but Admiral. Just completely right out of Rebels and A New Hope. And then the other thing I was thinking about was, okay, well, how quickly did the clones transition from all their regiment colors to just a standard white in that period of 5 years before we got to the Stormtroopers? And well, in the first episode, we saw a bunch of shinies because we were on Camino, which, well, they hadn't been deployed yet. And in this episode, I'm like, okay, all these guys are white. We're at this point, only 2-3 days out from Order 66. And that was kind of surprising. So I know we haven't seen much of it yet of the designs of the galaxy just from the settings we've been to. But I'm very curious to see how far they push it and just if they're really going to show more of a transition, because so far there hasn't really seemed to be that transition that we all kind of had in our minds when we have Tarkin strolling up in an Imperial uniform and the clones are all white.
It was very fast.
None of this stuff is really
it's very fast, right?
None of it's important. Yeah. None of it's really important, but we eat this stuff up. I mean, I know Paul Bateman's probably thinking the same thing. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on all that. But
there's the expanded quote.
Thanks, Nathan. Appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you very much. There's the expanded quote from Palpatine: "Execute Order 66 and notify the tailor," because they had to get those. I mean, how fast did they make those uniforms? They were just, They were just ready, just like that.
Well, I mean,
so
the colors. Now, I'm going to get in trouble from my friends in the 501st, but you've got necessary color variations. You've got pauldrons, which designate rank, I believe, in some instances. But in terms of the what seemed like they were doing with the uniforms is kind of like what you see in like archival World War II footage, where they're decorating their bombers, they're decorating the actual bombs. That it was this, and I love that Filoni infused that sort of real world World War II sort of vibe with the clones. But this is like, all right, playtime is over. We're going to get serious, and everybody is the same, and we're going to have rules, and we're going to have all these standards and all of that. I agree with our caller that it seemed to happen very, very quickly. And I also think it's interesting you pointed out that, in terms of seeing them in the first episode, it made sense that they were, Camino, that they were fresh. But now we're seeing them on Saluecemi, and they're, they don't have the colors. Could it be? I mean, is one thought might be that the clones that we're used to seeing in the Clone Wars are those working and reporting to Kenobi and Skywalker. These larger than life, according to the crawler, these heroes of the Clone Wars, these known figures throughout the galaxy, that they might have been a little bit more on the extreme side, that they might not have been the norm, that kind of customization, I guess, of the uniforms and the armor and all that might not have been quite as widespread as it was with the Kenobi.
No, just because, I mean, it seemed like every clone trooper we saw in the Clone Wars had some sort of customized modification to his armor. And it seemed like that stuff was encouraged. And I believe with the cognitive control that the inhibitor chip displays and has over each and every clone that has it, I think when Order 66 was triggered, that separates the connection from the Jedi. And it also must remove all the influence the Jedi had on them as well. They have to abandon any sort of they're just like their memory has been flushed a little bit.
So was some of that customization of the armor reflective of their Jedi general? Is that the idea?
Okay. 1,000%. I believe the Jedi encouraged that. I believe the Jedi encouraged individuality out of the clones, because unlike the Kaminoans or the government, they looked at the clones as individuals strong with the Force, because the Force connects everything. And to a Jedi, naturally, they would be considering the clones not expendable, not expendable, but as individual. And so I think they would encourage that sort of thing amongst the clones. Once then the clones were told to wipe out the Jedi, then I think there's just something about that inhibitor chip that would then purge the influence the Jedi had on the clones out as well. And then also consider the Force itself. The balance of the Force had tipped so much in the wake of Order 66 and the execution of so many Jedi that the dark side was the dominant force in the galaxy.
Yeah.
And I think that affected the clones as well. I think it affected society in general.
Right. And of course, the other aspect of this is that with the end of the war, and they're very outspoken about the war has ended. You saw, by the way, what was the name of the Imperial officer that was in the hologram that actually ended up being an action figure? Just it was a Black Series. Here, you want to talk about my May the 4th? So there was a Black Series action figure of a Bad Batch character who was the Imperial officer in the hologram transmission. It was supposed to be a figure that was going to go on sale May the 4th, or pre-order on May the 4th or something. And the the URL to pre-order leaked early, and it sold out before they even got to officially announce the. Yeah, I know, it's ridiculous. But anyway, I forget his name. Someone in the chat may have it, but at any rate,
might be an emerging character.
He is an emerging character. Rampart. Okay, there it is. Thank you, Connor Ferguson.
Rampart.
Appreciate that very much. Yes, Rampart. So he's doing the transmission, and he's talking about how the war is over. So you can imagine that these soldiers are getting their peacekeeper duds. You know, they're done with the battle, with the armor. They're done with the fighting proper, and they're going to get their peacekeeping uniforms and the armor to kind of go into the next phase of this. So I guess what I'm saying is there could be a natural real world transition from the scrappy customized stuff that they've built up over the years of the Clone Wars, and now the war is over. It's time to get into your appropriate attire. Something like that, I feel, could be used to explain some of that away a little bit.
Yeah, well, we've already heard Tarkin in the first episode talk about how it's cost prohibitive to continue to flesh out their army with clone troopers, because now they have enough military might and enough control over the galaxy where they can just start drafting people, and they don't have to pay for that. They don't have to pay for that. So while their draftees might not be totally, they don't have those inhibitor chips for starters, but we don't know that. Maybe stormtroopers also have inhibitor chips surgically implanted into them once they're part of the military. Maybe they all undergo these surgeries. The Empire is oppressive and evil, so I wouldn't put that past them at all. I never even thought about that. Yeah, I mean, they have the technology.
Yeah,
and then once they have the people.
Yeah,
maybe.
Maybe. Just maybe. All right, and with that, we're going to wrap up Bad Batch after show. Wow, this is so much fun, guys. I hope you're having as much fun as Jimmy Mack and I are. This really is a highlight of the week. It's so enjoyable hearing your thoughts and your theories and ideas. And big thanks to everyone who called. Huge thanks to everyone in the chat. Even Adam Bray. No, I'm sorry. We wanted to get Adam on. Actually, Adam, you should come on and be a co-host on one of these. You can come on, and we definitely want to get in touch with you and hear what you're having to say about the Bad Batch. Adam is the author and a co-author of countless Star Wars books and many of the different, in-universe guidebooks and things for Star Wars. And so his thoughts on this series would be, I think, very, very illuminating. Also, huge thanks to our Patreon supporters who just continue to amaze me and all of us here at Rebel Force Radio with the outpouring of support. And we love hearing from you. We try to get you, if you identify yourself as a Patreon supporter, we try to get you to the head of the line here in the queue to be on the show. But this is lots of fun. We will be back here next week with an all-new episode of the Rebel Force Radio Bad Batch After Show. I don't know that we have a title for next week's episode. As I said, we do these shows so quickly after the premiere that some of the information that shows up online later, we don't have. I don't think we have an episode
Maybe Tyler
list.
Page knows. Tyler, do you know? Can we bring
Tyler,
Tyler
do
up?
you know?
Let's thank Tyler, too.
Oh, and yes, of course, thanks to Tyler, our call screener. Everybody nice to you, Tyler?
Yeah, everyone was great.
All right,
Some
good.
excited folks. I have no idea what that is, by the way. I have no idea if there's a...
No clue if we've got episodes?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Tyler,
Thanks a lot, Tyler.
Always appreciative of your help and your service here to us at RFR as our official call screener and program observer. Jim, any final thoughts? Cut and Run, Episode 2, Bad Batch. We are 2, maybe 4 episodes deep already, depending on how you count.
I love what I'm seeing from this show. Cut and Run, what a fantastic second episode. It brought me a lot of the things that I really wanted to see. I wanted to see them moving around throughout the galaxy, moving from planet to planet, as we've seen in some Star Wars animated series. Sometimes they get stuck on the same planet for almost full seasons. We're not seeing that in Clone Wars. We're seeing the world building really grow because we're going to a bunch of different worlds. So I think that's a lot of fun. I love following up with a guy like Cut Laquwane, a character we only met once in the Clone Wars. So that really, to me, opens the door of possibilities. Who else are we going to see show up? I think, Captain Rex is a no-brainer. I wouldn't be surprised if we also see Gregor. Gregor could emerge because he's out there for sure. I mean, just so many characters. I'm thinking clone characters specifically. And I believe that's what the makers of the show did, is they went through the history of the Clone Wars, and they're looking at specific clones whose stories were told throughout the series and try to figure out ways to bring them back. Who's out there? That's what they're thinking. Who can we revisit? Who do we need an update from? And there's a lot of characters out there who fill that category. And Cut Laquwane is just he's a cut from the he's a cut above is what I'm trying to say. He's a cut above. God bless Cut. And I love the balance with character evolution, which we clearly saw in this episode. We saw Hunter observing Cut and realizing that, if you're going to be wielding an iron fist, it's a good idea to also, on the other hand, wear a velvet glove so you have a smoother touch. And he's learning that. It's going to be challenging for him to be bringing along a young kid on these crazy adventures they're going to be on. I know they get hired by a boss, a Trandoshan, in the next episode to carry out some sort of mission, a freelance job. So they're becoming the A-team. They're taking on the mercenary work for hire, and that's what's going to be happening next episode. Obviously, these guys are going to have to fuel up their ride, and I'm sure Wrecker takes a lot to feed that guy, so they're going to have to be out there earning some of these Imperial credits. We do know that Tech will be able to create chain codes for them, so they'll be able to cheat the system along the way too, which will come invaluable. But they still have to take up work to earn money, and that's what they're going to be doing next episode. It's going to be interesting to see how going on these mercenary missions, how little Omega is going to fit in with these fully fledged soldiers. How are they going to incorporate her? What are we going to discover her abilities are, and how valuable she'll be to the group? I think that's going to be part of her character growth. And Omega, the kid was a total red flag to me 2 episodes in, though. I'm liking this kid. I am surprised. I am liking this kid a lot. And I'm feeling sympathetic for the kid. I root for the kid. I understand what the kid's going through, And like I said, who couldn't have been touched by that sequence where she touches dirt for the first time? I mean, just think to yourself, wow, what would that be like? And how much of a mind trip would that be? How
depressing of a place would Camino be to grow up on? Jeez.
Yeah, but if you don't know any different, then...
Right.
But yeah, once you get a taste of that life outside, actually on terra firma, it probably changes your perception. She probably never wants to go back to Camino, and I think we saw that represented when she removed the headdress and did not put it on again. So,
right.
And I like that look. I like her without that headdress too. I thought that was kind of distracting. She's more of a person now to me.
Right. She seems more like a kid. Thanks to all the super chats. We threw them up on the screen here as we were signing off. We do appreciate those. Jim, a lot of people were saying, what about the music, Kevin Kiner? They're hearing more Williams influence. They're hearing Force theme. Really good stuff coming from him.
Newt Gunray, not in this episode, because he's dead.
All right. That'll do it for us. We'll see you next time here on the Rebel Force Radio Bad Batch After Show. Where there's a new Bad Batch episode, you'll find us right here live on YouTube. Thank you all so much. For Rebel Force Radio, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
Always